She walked into her own bank in plain clothes and was denied a simple withdrawal. The manager laughed in her face. Minutes later, she fired him in front of the entire branch. She didn't arrive in a company car. She wasn't wearing a tailored suit. No assistant, no clipboard, no loud voice announcing her name at the front desk. Just a woman in her mid-40s, dressed in a teal blouse and charcoal slacks, holding her keys in one hand and a simple leather wallet in the other. Lila Harper looked like any other customer when she stepped into the Pinnacle Federal branch off Oracle Road in Tucson, Arizona. That was the point. She came alone, unannounced, because you learn the most about a place when no one knows who you are. The branch lobby was quiet, with fluorescent lights humming overhead. A handful of customers sat in cushioned chairs by the windows, scrolling phones or filling out forms. Lila waited patiently behind a man in a bright orange construction vest, chatting with one of the tellers. When her turn came, she stepped up to the counter with a polite smile. "Good morning," she said. "I'd like to make a withdrawal from my personal account." The teller, a young woman named Jenna, nodded. "Sure, I'll need your ID and account number." Lila handed over both, but before Jenna could proceed, the manager, Gregory Wells, early 50s, wire-framed glasses, navy tie, forced smile, stepped out of his glass-walled office. He glanced at Lila, then at her ID, then back at her. "I'm sorry," Gregory interrupted. "We can't process that withdrawal today." Lila blinked, confused. "I don't understand. Is there an issue with my account?" Gregory gave a thin chuckle. "Let's just say we've had incidents, people pretending to be someone they're not. Large withdrawals, you know how it is." Lila stared at him, wondering if this was some kind of test. "My account is in good standing. I can provide additional verification if needed." He didn't ask for it. Instead, Gregory leaned against the counter with a practiced smirk. "We've had fraud attempts before. No offense, but we don't just take people's word for it. And this ID, it doesn't look like you." Lila tilted her head, trying to stay calm. "It is me. I'm Lila Harper, CEO of this bank." A man behind her shifted in line. Jenna glanced up quickly from her terminal. Gregory snorted, dismissing her claim entirely. "Ma'am, let's not waste each other's time," he said, waving a hand. "You'll need to come back with proper verification, or better yet, set an appointment." Lila looked at him directly. "Gregory, is it?" He nodded curtly. She paused, then asked slowly, "Did you actually check the account in the system before you came over?" Gregory crossed his arms. "It's procedure. I don't need to look up every ID to know when something feels off." That was the moment, not when he refused the withdrawal, not even when he questioned her identity, but when he said "feels off," as if her presence alone was suspicious. Lila's face remained neutral, but inside, something tightened. She had led this company through 3 mergers, faced down a skeptical board, and turned Pinnacle Federal into one of the strongest regional banks in the Southwest. Yet here she was, being treated like a fraud in her own institution by a man who hadn't bothered to verify anything. Still, she kept her voice even. "Gregory, I suggest you check the account now, just to be sure." Instead of doing that, Gregory turned to Jenna, who had gone quiet. "Can you handle this?" "I've got calls to make," he said, already walking away. But before he could vanish into his office, Lila pulled her phone from her purse, not to yell, not to make a scene, just to make a single call. What happened after that call would shift the entire atmosphere of the branch. Gregory's door clicked shut behind him, but the air in the lobby stayed heavy. Jenna shifted uncomfortably behind the counter, her eyes flicking between her monitor and Lila. The other customers pretended not to listen, but every ear was tuned in. Lila stood still for a moment, then stepped back from the counter, phone in hand. She didn't make the call yet. "Jenna," she said softly, "do you see the name on that ID?" Jenna hesitated, looked down, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Lila Harper." Lila gave her a half-smile. "And when you type that name into the account system, what do you see?" Jenna's fingers tapped hesitantly across the keyboard. A few seconds passed, and her eyes widened slightly. "I see an executive account. Lila Harper, CEO." She cut herself off, glancing toward Gregory's office. "You didn't know I was coming," Lila said. "I didn't want anyone to. But now that you see my information matches, is there anything else you need?" Before Jenna could respond, the office door opened again. Gregory returned, holding a clipboard he didn't need. "Is there still an issue?" he asked sharply. eyes flicking between them. Lila didn't raise her voice. Jenna pulled up the account. It confirms who I am. You can process the withdrawal now. Gregory sighed dramatically. Look, Lady Miss Harper. Jenna interrupted, almost involuntarily. Her account shows she's the CEO. Gregory's face twitched, then hardened. Oh, so now we're just taking customers' word and letting them play dress up? He snapped, turning to Lila. You show up here with no assistant, no warning, dressed like you're running errands, and we're supposed to believe you're someone important. Silence. Pins stopped scratching. Even the man in the construction vest pocketed his phone. Lila stared at him, the way she might study a report that didn't add up. I didn't realize my wardrobe needed approval to access my own funds, she said. Gregory's jaw tightened. It's not about your clothes. It's about protocol. You're not following protocol. You refuse to verify my identity before making an assumption, Lila said. You spoke to me with sarcasm, dismissed a valid ID, and now you're trying to tell me how to do my job. Gregory scoffed. Can someone get this woman out of here before she causes a scene? Jenna flinched. Another teller, a man in his 30s named Marcus, stood from his desk, but didn't move. He studied Lila's face, really looking at her now. Wait a second, he muttered. Lila Harper. I've seen her before. She gave that speech at the Phoenix conference last year on community banking. That's her. Gregory didn't react right away. He blinked slowly, like his brain was catching up. Lila took a step forward, calm, collected, no raised voice, but her words carried weight now. I gave that speech because I believe people in positions like yours shape how customers see our institution. You've made it very clear how you see me. He opened his mouth, but Lila held up a hand. This conversation is over. You had a chance to handle this with dignity. You chose something else. She pressed call on her phone. It rang twice. Nora, hi. Patch me through to HR right now. Yes, this location. Then she ended the call. Gregory looked at her, unsure whether to scoff or laugh, but the energy in the room had shifted. He wasn't in control anymore. The employees felt it. The customers felt it. But Gregory didn't yet grasp how quickly things were about to unravel. Lila stayed planted near the teller window, phone in hand, eyes steady on Gregory's office door. There was no yelling, no threats, just a silence that made everyone stand straighter. She could have gone off. She had every reason to. But this wasn't about flexing power. That wasn't her way. She remembered her first branch visit as a newly appointed regional director, years ago, still climbing the ladder at Pinnacle Federal. She'd walked into a branch in Phoenix, and the manager had politely asked if she was lost. She laughed it off, thin, young black woman in a sharp suit, fresh off a promotion, used to the raised eyebrows. She wasn't laughing now. A soft ping interrupted her thoughts and incoming call. She picked up. Yes, I'm here. No, he doesn't know yet. I'll hold. Gregory had gone back into his office, but left the door open, watching her, arms crossed, still smug, still thinking she was bluffing. Marcus whispered something to Jenna, who nodded slowly. An older customer, a woman with a checkbook and a cane, leaned toward Lila. Sweetheart, you okay? That man was out of line. Lila gave her a gentle smile. Thank you. I'm handling it. The phone clicked. Lila, it's Carla from HR. I have the regional VP looped in. Good. I'm at the Oracle Road branch in Tucson. I've just been refused withdrawal service. The branch manager questioned my identity, ignored verification, and dismissed me in front of customers. Silence on the line. Then Carla's voice turned cold. Did he know who you were? I told him twice. We'll take care of it. Give us 3 minutes. Lila hung up, took a deep breath, and turned to face the room again. Jenna, hands trembling slightly, cleared her throat. Miss Harper, do you still want to process the withdrawal? No, Lila said gently. Thank you, though. You handled that as best you could. Jenna looked relieved, but guilty. I wasn't sure what to do. You trusted your system, Lila said. That's what you're trained to do. What matters is how you respond when something doesn't make sense. You responded with curiosity. He responded with control. A moment passed. Gregory emerged again, walking slower, clipboard still under his arm. Still waiting on the cavalry? He said with a single chuckle. Lila met his eyes. They're on their way. He frowned, unsure if it was an insult. Then the branch phone rang. Marcus answered. Pinnacle Federal, Oracle Road branch. Yes, one moment. He looked at Gregory. It's for you. Gregory took the phone slowly, like it might bite. Hello, this is Gregory Wells. His eyes darted to Lila. She's still here. He paused, nodded once. Understood. He hung up and walked to the middle of the lobby, looking around like he'd just realized the whole room was watching. Miss Harper, he said, voice unsteady now. Can I speak with you privately for a moment? You had your moment, she replied. Gregory stood there, fingers pressed flat against his clipboard, trying to regroup. Whatever confidence he'd had was fading fast. Look, he started. Maybe things got a little tense. It's been a stressful morning, and... Stop, Lila said, her voice sharp enough to cut him off mid-sentence. A hush fell over the branch. Jenna pretended to focus on her computer. Marcus didn't bother pretending. The customers stayed frozen, all eyes on the woman in the teal blouse who hadn't raised her voice but now owned the room. I don't want a speech, she added. I want accountability. Gregory flinched. You're seriously trying to blame me for following security protocol? No, Lila said. I'm holding you responsible for not following protocol. You refused to check my ID, ignored system verification, and made it personal. You didn't ask a single question. You decided what I was based on how I looked, how I spoke, what I wore. That's not just lazy, it's dangerous. You work in finance, Gregory. You don't get to lead with assumption. At that moment, the front doors opened. Two people walked in, both in dark gray suits. One was Carla from HR. The other, tall with a neatly trimmed beard, was Victor Lang, the bank's regional VP. They walked straight to Lila, bypassing everyone else. Lila, Victor said, nodding. We got here as fast as we could. Appreciate it, she replied, her tone calm but razor-edged. Victor turned to Gregory. Let's move to your office. Gregory froze. Wait, I didn't even know she was coming. She gave no notice. That's not the issue, Victor said, unflinching. Gregory looked to Carla for backup, but she shook her head. We've reviewed the live branch footage. There's audio, there's visual. It's very clear. I was doing my job, Gregory said, voice rising. You're not being terminated because she's the CEO, Carla cut in. You're being terminated because you disregarded protocol, showed blatant disrespect, and created an unsafe atmosphere for a client and your staff. He stood there, stunned. Lila stepped forward. I could have fired you the second I walked in, but I wanted you to hear why this matters. She gestured around the room. These people didn't know who I was. They watched how you treated someone you didn't think was important. That's a reputation stain that doesn't wash off. It follows us, and I don't let that stain spread. Gregory's shoulders slumped. He looked small now, unsure of where to stand or what to say. Carla motioned him toward the back office. He didn't argue. As the door clicked shut, a heavy silence settled, not awkward, but weighted, like the oxygen had shifted. Lila turned to the staff. I'll address the team in 5 minutes. Please wrap up with your customers. Then she walked to the far end of the branch and sat alone in a chair. 5 minutes felt like 30. Customers whispered. Some left, others lingered, curious. The staff kept their eyes low but their ears sharp. Something had shifted, and everyone felt it. When Lila stood and walked to the center of the lobby, it wasn't as the woman who'd asked for a withdrawal. It was as the leader everyone now recognized. Can I speak with the staff, please? She asked, her tone softer now. Jenna, Marcus, and 2 other tellers left their windows and gathered. The assistant branch manager, a man named Paul who'd stayed quiet, stepped forward too. I know this morning was unexpected, Lila began. But I want to explain something important, not just about what happened, but why it can't happen again. They listened quietly. I've worked at this bank for 22 years. Started as an intern, pushing papers, watching managers walk by without a glance. I learned early that some people only offer respect when they think you've earned either when you look a certain way. She glanced at Jenna, who looked like she might cry. Marcus stood straighter. When I came in today, I didn't want to be treated like a CEO. I wanted to see how the branch ran, how people were spoken to, if our mission of integrity lived inside these walls. Her voice landed heavy. What I saw was a manager make a decision based on assumption questions, no verification, just judgment. Paul cleared his throat. Miss Harper, if I may, some of us knew something felt off, but we weren't sure how to step in without overstepping. I understand, Lila said. That's why I'm here. It's not just about Gregory. It's about how we respond when we see something going wrong, not just for customers, but for each other. That I don't want to overstep, instinct stops change before it starts. Silence. Then Marcus spoke from the back. I've only been here a year, but I've seen managers ignore people. I didn't want to be that person, but I froze today. I saw what he was doing to you and didn't say anything. Lila nodded. You're saying something now. Jenna added quietly. I knew something was off too. I just didn't know if backing you up would get me in trouble. It won't, Lila assured her. Speaking up when someone's being mistreated, especially in a place of business, is never a mistake. One of the other tellers, an older man named Walter, looked over his glasses. Honestly, I think we've all seen Gregory act like that before, just not to someone with authority. Exactly, Lila said. And if he talks to a CEO like that, how do you think he treats customers when no one's watching? No one had to answer. Everyone knew. She looked at the group, real people, real faces, the heartbeat of the company. Moving forward, there'll be a formal training session on client interaction and internal respect. I'll be sitting in on the first one. If we can't hold each other accountable in here, she tapped the floor, we've got no business talking about trust out there. A ripple of agreement moved through the staff. Heads nodded, shoulders relaxed. She ended with one last thought. It's not about who you think someone is. It's about treating every person with the same respect you'd give if you knew. But Lila wasn't done. There was one final lesson the company needed to hear. The staff meeting wrapped quietly, with a few handshakes and lingering questions. No one clocked out early. Lila didn't leave right away. She walked into the small break room, sat at a round table near the vending machine, and pulled out her phone not to check messages, but to think. It wasn't about pride. It was about what could have happened if she hadn't come in that morning, dressed like any other customer. If she'd sent an assistant or worn her CEO badge, Gregory would have smiled, offered coffee, and nothing would have changed. She remembered a complaint letter from months earlier. A woman in Mesa said a manager dismissed her, spoke over her, refused to process a transaction for her disabled father. The case was marked resolved. Internal review said the manager followed protocol. But the tone of that letter stuck with her. It wasn't what he said. It was how quickly he decided I didn't belong. A knock pulled her from her thoughts. It was Victor, the regional VP. He closed the door behind him. You okay? He asked. Yeah, she said. Just thinking. I've worked with you a long time, Lila. I've never seen you fire someone like that, on the floor, in front of staff and customers. I didn't plan to, she replied. But I needed them to see accountability in real Timino memos. No quiet transfers, just the truth. Victor nodded. Some people upstairs might say you made it personal. It was personal, she said evenly. And if they don't understand why, it's part of the same problem. He didn't argue. Instead, he asked, do you think he would have treated me the same way? Lila didn't blink. You're in a suit, Victor. You're 6'2", with a VP title. He'd have rolled out a red carpet. He nodded, quieter this time. They sat in silence for a moment. You think the staff got the message? He asked. They did, she said. More importantly, they felt it. That stays longer than a message. He stood to leave, then paused. Want me to handle communication to the other branches? No, Lila said, gathering her things. I'll do it myself. You're going to visit them? Not right away, but eventually. She smiled faintly. Might leave the suit at home again. Victor grinned. Remind me not to be rude to any new walk-ins. She chuckled softly. You're safe. As he left, Lila took one last look around the stale coffee pot, the half-filled bulletin board, the sound of quiet voices beyond the door. This wasn't just a place where money moved. It was a reflection of who they were when no one was watching. Before leaving, Lila asked for a quick announcement over the intercom, nothing formal. Just a few words to close a day no one would forget. Hi, this is Lila Harper. Thank you to all team members for your patience and professionalism this morning. I'll be heading out shortly, but I wanted to say one last thing. Meet me in the lobby if you have a moment. It didn't take long. Employees gathered, some leaning on desks, others standing in the back. Even the security guard stepped in. It was casual, but every eye was on her. Lila stood, hands loosely clasped, no script. Today could have been a bad dream, something you tell your spouse about or try to forget. But it's not going to be that, because today mattered. People shifted, listening deeper. I walked in not looking like the person you see in company videos. I did it to know what really happens here when no one's performing, when people think they're dealing with just a customer. What I got was the truth, unfiltered. She let that sit. But the truth goes beyond one manager's mistake. The real truth is how you responded. Some of you froze, some hesitated. That's human. But now you've seen what silence allows, and I hope you've also seen what speaking up can create. She scanned the room. Jenna stood near Marcus. Walter looked at his shoes. Paul stood with his arms behind his back. We talk about leadership strategy, metrics, meetings. But real leadership is holding the door for a customer who's had a terrible day. It's speaking up when a colleague is out of line. It's refusing to be a bystander. Her voice softened. Sometimes leadership means doing the hard thing in front of everyone, not because it's comfortable, but because people are watching. You can either teach them fear or teach them courage. She took a breath. Gregory won't be coming back. That decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. One moment like today, if left alone, becomes normal, and normal becomes policy. Then she smiled, not the CEO's smile from press photos, but something warmer, worn in, like she'd been where they were. I'll visit other branches in the coming months, not to test anyone, but to listen. And yes, sometimes I'll be dressed like today. Light laughter rippled through the group. If you're ever unsure, ask yourself, would I treat this person the same way if they could walk into a boardroom tomorrow and make a decision about my job? If the answer's no, it's not the right way to treat them. Quiet agreement filled the space. She paused, then added, thanks for hearing me. And thank you for staying open to learning. That's how we grow, not just as a bank, but as people. With that, she picked up her purse, offered a nod, and walked out. No fanfare, no security detail, just a woman who reminded everyone what respect looks like when the suits are off and the truth is out in the open. Because leadership isn't about who's watching. It's about how you behave when you think no one is.